The battle between the strongest continues, with Sukuna pulling off some unbelievable feats and actually having Gojo feeling like he might lose for once. And then Gojo's unbelievable response with his strongest hidden power yet. We're talking world-ending power. The hype is off the charts, unlimited one might say. So many of our questions are answered from last chapter, so make sure to stay tuned for this epic chapter. Use your 6 eyes to locate and smash that like button if you enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen reviews like this one and want to keep them coming on the channel. And make this the video you join the special grade fan by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future Jujutsu Kaisen videos. You have the power to help us hit our insane goal of 2 million subscribers here on YouTube by just pushing one button. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the hypest fight of hypest fights, spoilers and all. Last chapter ended up with insane twist after insane twist. Gojo landed a black flash that finally seemed to knock Sukuna out for good. His eyes went white and everything. The Mahoraga wheel fell, but then it spun and Mahoraga appeared attacking Gojo. He slashed Gojo, showing that he had indeed finally adapted to Gojo's infinity, and Gojo is now in trouble. Another question we had, which will be answered in this chapter, is if Mahoraga adapted to all of the limitless or just the techniques Gojo used so far, and if Sukuna is still combat ready even after it looked like he was taken out of commission last chapter. So now with those questions in mind, let's jump into this chapter, chapter 233. This chapter starts with everyone being understandably worried about Mahoraga. But Yuji is still hopeful, saying that even if Mahoraga adapted to infinity, it's still on equal footing with Gojo, and Gojo's wounds can be healed soon. I just also love how we always see Yuta freaking out and sweating. I feel like the mangaka thinks Yuta has the perfect face for it or something like that, because we see his worried expression all the time during this fight. But then back to Yuji, and you gotta love Yuji's optimism, and he brings up a solid point. Gojo's infinity being taken out just puts him where most fighters would start out with anyway, and Gojo is still the strongest sorcerer after that. However, he's also been going for a long time now with his domain expansions, reverse curse technique after reverse curse technique, whether in the form of healing or red, so even he, one would think, might be reaching his limit. Accordingly, we see a highly stressed Shoko, who has smoked a lot of cigarettes mind you to show how worried she is, chain smoking the whole time. She says Gojo's healing speed is getting slow, and she would know as a reverse cursed expert herself. She says Gojo can use reverse curse technique since we saw him use his red ability a little while ago, but the output is decreasing. Even Gojo is running out of steam, it seems clear right now, but at least she points out that it should be the same for Sukuna. The only problem is Sukuna's load is being shared by the overpowered Shikigami Mahoraga as well, so I can't imagine it being as difficult as it is for Gojo. Even if Sukuna wins, it definitely feels a bit like he's cheating here, not just relying on his own powers, but then again, when has that ever bothered bad guys? And a win is a win at the end of the day. Gojo for his part seems to feel the same way and has never thought to complain, but only to rise up to every subsequent challenge, which is why we love and respect them. And by the way, we also love and respect people who hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But then we see something truly crazy. The narrator says, and again we'll get clear translations when the actual official translated pages come out, but the narrator says even if opponent is strongest of all time, the king of curses, everyone thought it was impossible. They thought Gojo might lose. Even Gojo himself thought so. That's an insane revelation right now, because when it comes to talking, Gojo's always sure of himself. Like, he always seems super confident, like there's no doubt in his mind. But here we see that in his thoughts, even he has his doubts. That makes this fight all the more intense and epic. No matter what happens here, we can't look back and say Gojo had complete control of this fight the whole time. In fact, we get a cool shout out to the season being animated right now, as Gojo thinks when was the last time he felt like this, and Toji immediately pops up in his mind. Remember, he did lose to Toji before. In the end, Toji forced his evolution and he became a much stronger fighter, but before that Toji beat him in round 1. So again, Gojo probably feels like Sukuna and Mahoraga have him on the ropes now, but that begs the question, will that just push him to reach and unlock another level of power like after Toji had him on the ropes as well? Either way, the narrator makes it clear that Gojo is not worried or scared. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Even though signs that he might lose are coming up, something is swelling up more in Gojo, and and it is satisfaction in caps, by the way, so a lot of satisfaction. The loneliness that comes from being the strongest again comes up, and I've been mentioning this throughout the chapters. Gojo has been loving this fight because it finally helped with that loneliness, and now the mangaka is emphasizing it in black and white again. Gojo has been longing for something like this, for a fight where he too could possibly lose. I love to see good guys and not just bad guys being capable of this kind of badass mindset. It's like getting excited by the challenge and the possibility of losing more than just the certainty of victory. Gojo then starts treating Mahoraga like a human opponent, which is crazy in and of itself. He quickly punches Mahoraga on the face and pushes it back, making Mahoraga choke. Against this Shikigami, that's insane. Like, that's insane to even think about. Gojo then recites the chants to restore his lowered output and proceeds to blast Curse Technique Reversal Red, but Sukuna has regained consciousness and activates Megumi's Rabbit Escape Technique. Gojo's blast damages the surroundings, but Mahoraga escapes, and Gojo realizes that Sukuna is protecting Mahoraga and using it for offense since it has adapted to Gojo's infinity. That's another crazy idea, someone supporting and assisting a monster like Mahoraga, but credit to Sukuna for thinking of it, and credit to Gojo for being so ridiculously strong that he actually makes something like that necessary. It's not just rabbits Sukuna uses to distract Gojo, but also a fire extinguisher that creates a smokescreen. Mahoraga attacks from overhead while Sukuna strikes the pose that Choso uses for piercing blood. Gojo then does complain, according to these spoilers, a big deal for Gojo to be sure, about Sukuna being able to use Shikigami abilities without even having to summon them. Turns out the last attack was a water shoot technique from Max Elephant Shikigami, but he used piercing blood method to increase the power and concentration of the blast. Crazy how Sukuna never ceases to impress and pull more things from his sleeves. Even Gojo is like, come on man, at this point. Just as Gojo is defending against Mahoraga, Sukuna lands his attack on Gojo's arm and wounds him. Gojo realizes it's not just about Sukuna supporting Mahoraga anymore, who can wound Gojo. When Mahoraga makes contact, he deactivates Gojo's infinity, and then Sukuna can also attack. So now it's pretty much 2 versus 1, or at least it seems like that, but not for long. Gojo's expression actually looks serious now. He's not all smiles as usual. He thinks to himself that adapting to red will take more time compared to blue. Now, whether this is because red is a reverse curse technique of blue and thus more complicated, or because Gojo just hasn't used it as much as blue in this battle, I'm not sure. If it comes down to complication though, then hopefully Gojo has some more insane and complicated abilities that he's saving for Mahoraga and Sukuna down the line. But just as Gojo has already gotten to the point where he's serious, Sukuna says don't misunderstand, it's not 2 versus 1, but 3 versus 1, and he summons a new Shikigami named Chimera Beast Agito. This seems to allow him to combine different Shikigami into a Mega Shikigami. As the spoilers point out, it seems to merge Nue and Totality, but Sukuna didn't specifically say merge, but just chanted these 2 names first in the last page and then summoned this new one. Either way, the dude is showing insane mastery over this technique, which he recently got from Megumi's body. It's unreal. So now it's this new overpowered Shikigami and Mahoraga and Sukuna versus 1 Gojo. 3 versus 1. So Sukuna was just rubbing it in saying, oh, you only think it's that bad? No bro, it's way worse than you think. After Gojo dominated most of the fight up to this point, the tables have turned, and in this chapter Sukuna is crushing it. Crazy how quick he went from being knocked out to winning. It's comforting to see that Gojo hasn't lost his sense of humor though, and even though he's in a tricky situation, he teases Sukuna saying that between these 2 giants, he looks like a lost child, also implying that he can't win on his own and needs the help of his quote-unquote parents to bail him out. Everyone then attacks Gojo at the same time. He's doing an amazing job dodging and even gets a shot off at Mahoraga, but the red blast doesn't do any meaningful damage at all. At first, Gojo's expression is almost of disbelief, but then he smiles again, as we're used to. It seems clear that Mahoraga has adapted to red enough that Gojo can't hope to beat it with red. That, or it's not even strong enough in the first place. So Gojo thinks he now only has quote-unquote that to demolish Mahoraga in one shot. Again, the mangaka is so good at building suspense and intensity here. Before it was 4 turns, and now it comes down to 1 shot. Gojo thinks that the charge is big and Sukuna will be aware of it, but he says he has no other choice but to use it. So there he goes, hyping up his secret power. That in and of itself is crazy. He seems to be even unsure if it'll work, but he's in a corner and he has no other options. Crazy we saw the day where Gojo is in such a position. But this is a shonen battle manga, and you can bet he'll pull off this insane technique called an unlimited hollow technique. We know that hollow is purple, the combining of red and blue, and something Mahoraga shouldn't have adapted to yet because Gojo hasn't been using purple. Beyond that though, we can assume that it will be a new power, a new purple attack, one we haven't seen yet, Gojo's most powerful technique of all, and in all likelihood, his ultimate finisher move. And wow, I think this was the best chapter of the fight yet. Let me know if you agree and if you think Gojo will be able to pull off the victory with this final ultimate technique. Crazy to see him push to a corner like this at all. If you want to know more about the monster who pushed Gojo to his limit, then make sure to check out our recent video about why everyone is afraid of Sukuna. Link on screen right now, and don't forget to like and subscribe and help us get to 2 million subscribers.